Good morning, everybody. It's your boy L to the B making another video. Of course, I'm sticking with consistency. It's not about always the quality, unfortunately, here, but I am putting out quantity. Somebody might say, is that really benefiting your YouTube channel? This one doesn't matter. This channel doesn't matter. You guys are here for hopefully some entertainment, maybe just to watch me talk, which cool. I'm here. I'm just putting my message out, my feelings, and reaffirming something I can do every single day. Maybe to carry over to other things in my life. Jim Rohn says, when you affect one discipline, you affect all disciplines. So consistency is cool. If I've got a little bit of bags under my eyes or it looks like I'm a little bit tired, I'm not tired necessarily, but I was up till like 3 in the morning. I was playing around with ChatGPT, doing a little bit of audios back and forth. And I think today I want to take it a little step further in actually making, oh gosh, how do I want to say this? I want to prompt the chat or the AI to do a little bit different. I want it to really come into the scenario of what it would be like to be a true narcissist and to see what this interplay or dialogue would be between me and that interface. And see, I'm just curious about the experience. I mean, honestly, that's just going to be fun. But yeah, whew, went to bed late. No drinking. Usually if I'm running into the dumps with something like this bother me emotionally or anything like that, I usually resort to doing something like if I'm getting stoned or I'm going to be drinking alcohol. It's usually one of those two. I don't really go into something else extra deep like, I got to get back to some soul searching. Oh, I think it'd be fun to escape reality. I've done enough of those things in my lifetime already. I don't need them. I hope people can get to a place where they can do something like that. Meaning that if they're run into some problems in their life, they're not really always resorting to something else like that as a coping mechanism that doesn't really serve them in the long run. I mean, I'm going to probably have some fun tonight because I'm going out, hopefully, with a friend, and maybe she brings some girlfriends. Maybe I'll meet some other girls. I'm excited about the whole experience, see what's out there. I always have a good time when I'm out, usually. Usually meet some nice ladies, have some great conversations, and we'll see where it goes from there. But it's so great. I don't know. I reflect on how I got into the relationship I was just in, what I accepted, and somebody might say, "Well, do you have any regrets?" I don't have really any regrets. I just really don't. I keep thinking like running down the line and saying, "Well, could have done something different here, and could have done better there, or how?" Nah, man, there's no really regrets on the past. I had a good time in some ways. Probably could have had a better time with somebody else. Could have had a better time in my life. Could have made more progress. Don't beat yourself up if you're learning a lesson or you're growing. That's a big message here, especially in this thank you gratitude video. So I make these every morning. I try to get myself gemmed up, juiced up, ready to go. And this is part of it. I'm excited to do it. Let's go a little bit different here. Let me see where I want to go with this direction. So, yeah, stayed up last night. Hadn't anticipated it, but I drank a lot of caffeine that day. And if anybody knows, I don't drink caffeine. I just don't do it most of the time. And that whole day was built on it. I had such a high anxiety push. Thankfully, my heart can handle it. But I started out the morning talking with the other ex, the first ex, and she had her little preliminary questions about my relationship, and I kept them as vague as I could. I really didn't want to go into details, especially with the first ex, and find those little weak points, and it was a mute point, really. But I had coffee, and that coffee was just juicing me up. And then the conversations kind of kept getting longer and longer. I'm trying to remember kind of the nature of what that was like. So when I came in, we sat down, we sat outside, started, doing, it went right into me. And one of the questions she asked, you know, she's got things to do on her side, blah, blah, blah. Is what I said. She's got things to do on her side, blah, 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 about my recent relationship. And the question was, well, what lesson did you learn? And I kind of cracked up, because for me, that's a good question. I mean, now I'm not going to run away from that. I thought, that's a good question. What did I take away from this? And I've already kind of assessed some of it. And some of that was clarifying boundaries, expectations, and things like that up front. Getting something like that taken care of in the early stages of a relationship, I think is hugely beneficial because it allows each person to kind of know where they're at. And I think that's going to be beneficial for anybody in any type of relationship, whether it's friendship or whatever. You want to kind of clarify what are we getting into? What is kind of like your dreams idea? So we got an idea, right? Okay, so you get the idea. So I'm probably going to be a little bit of a ramble fest this morning. Apologize right now, but again, you jumped in on my journal entry. So the one thing, okay, so let's say it like this. What was the biggest moment of this conversation that lasted from like 8:45 to damn near 10? So it was almost an hour and a quarter of a minute long conversation. But when we got onto our daughter and we started speaking about that, it hit this one area where she was just gonna like, I don't know, just assert some kind of dominance like on whatever she thought she was gonna do with me, and that she wasn't ready for that. It's like, when you're in a relationship with somebody and you've been that yielding party and you just think, oh, they'll do this, they'll agree to that, and I hope we're on the same page, and it wasn't budging with me. I was very clear, very fucking clear. So one of the things she wanted to clarify was there was not going to be any spanking. Can we agree on that? That we're not going to spank. And I was like, that you're not going to spank our child, right? She says, no, the both of us. Like, that's non-negotiable. And I was like, non-negotiable? Like, I got to listen to what you're telling me kind of thing and just agree? I'm like, nah, that ain't going to work. And like, that was like, yes, it will. And I was like, no, it won't, because you're not the boss of me. And you got to think I'm in a public place, so she's not really ready for how I'm going to respond to things. I don't care where I'm at. If you send me there or you give me what she called the trigger, yeah, that's a trigger. You're not going to assert any kind of dominance over my life. I'm completely sovereign in my decisions. You don't have any power on this side of the things. So, I mean, she goes, well, if something were happening and I was spanking our child or beating her, she kept using the word beating. Like, that just shows somebody that, for me, when somebody inserts the word beating next to spanking or disciplinary action, they don't have a real clear understanding of what they're saying. They're just interchangeably saying things. There's so much nuance in these terms that what you might call beating, what I call beating, all these things are different. And I explained that. I was like, look, I don't beat my child. Half the time when people are in this state and they're disciplining their kids, they're spanking them out of aggression, they're spanking them out of frustration, they have lack of their own personal control. There's no real lessons going through this process. And there's no follow-up. For me, I'm just speaking about me as a parent, I remember a lot of the times when I was disciplined and I received my spankings, and sometimes I didn't really have a good follow-up or understanding what I did or didn't do wrong. But there was times I definitely knew what I did and didn't do right. And because those times happened, I knew what I was getting. It was coming. It was like, this is, you crossed the line, bro. And I mean, I give an example right now. One of them, one of the worst ones. I didn't have spankings for most of my life, up until this point, and this was in my later, like, adult, like, I would say around 11, 12, maybe. I was like getting older, I was still young, but I hadn't had spankings in forever, and I'll never forget what I did. So I wanted access to use AOL, and I couldn't get anyone to help me. Like, nobody's gonna pay for that service. So I remember distinctly going in, grabbing my grandmother's checkbook out. I don't think it was, maybe her checkbook. I don't think it was a credit card at that time. But whatever, I don't know what I used. I'm pretty sure it was a checkbook, or if it was her card, okay. But I used her personal information to sign up and to then have the charge made on her account, thinking that they're not going to find out. And so they really didn't, because they couldn't put two and two together. Like, surely, like, L ain't figured this one out. Like, I did. I was a smart guy. I was a smart guy when I was young. So I used that service, or I used her stuff, did that, and then I came clean later. Like, it was, I think, after they were trying to dig and figure out, like, how did this account, how this a breach happen and all that stuff. And I was like, honestly, I have something to tell you, Mom. I'm the one that got into the account, and I did this and I charged the account. So I came forward, and that was when I got disciplined. I was like, well, she's like, what's coming, like, I wouldn't do a whole lot of things, but for this one, you're going to have to get some punishment. And it was a big one, but it isn't like it necessarily set me on course. I already kind of knew what I did wrong. I'm not necessarily going to do it again, but it made a very big impact with what I received as punishment. And at the time, you could ground me, and I would listen to some of the grounding, and then it would loosen up. But grounding was never, it was starting to not become an effective punishing or discipline tool, because I did not care. It was like, okay, I'm on probation, basically. And then I can go back and choose to do these things later if I want to decide. It was not that bad. Anyways, the point being is that we all parent differently. And there's a lot of people that lack that understanding, I really think. And it's like, well, what makes me think that I understand what I'm doing on parenting? I check in with myself consciously in these moments. So when there was like a fire up and I'm getting frustrated, I'm getting angry, I can tell what that looks like. And I try to, if I can't stop it, or I get frustrated or I get angry, I might get very angry, but I will go into a rage. And it's like, I'm not going to take that out on my kid. I'll just get angry. I'll yell at me like, God, what? Like, this at least demonstrates for your child. People don't understand what kids are learning in any of this. Is that when something happens and you have a natural response to it, it's okay to release. And sometimes you can't release it well, but you try to manifest it the best way you can, but you don't always just sit there and hold it in and say, you really upset me right now. I don't like that. I need to walk away. You're not always going to respond like that if you're in a fit of rage or whatever that is. And what I've noticed out of my kid is that she's told me this. She's like, I get a chance to see different perspectives of emotion. And that was very, very profound for her understanding at a young age. But that's what she's observed, and she's able to echo that back to me. She was like, so I get to see a range of different emotions. And I like that. She likes it. She doesn't like me getting frustrated, upset. She likes being able to see that I can express certain things that I'm feeling. And this is something that other people might do too. They're learning, they're observing, this is osmosis time. I think we're always dealing with osmosis, but just varying levels. And when you got somebody else that's like they spank their kid out of frustration, and you ask the kid later, did they understand? Like, I speak with my kid after those disciplinary actions, and it's been years since I've even had to think about doing something like spanking. It just doesn't cross the line. Not with my child. She's such a great kid, and I honor that. And I may have my weak moments. Maybe I do get a little physical on something that it's not like a spanking or whatever it is, but I might grab her and I might say things, or I might do something that's not warranted. My point in this is whether you beat your child or you say something to them, or you make them feel a certain way that isn't warranted. It's up to you then as a parent to come back and apologize to your child for those actions, give them love, ask them for forgiveness if that's what you want to do, but make sure that they understand and you understand what you've done wrong, and then go from there. On the times that I have done this punishments in the past or these spankings, I don't remember what the heck they were that she did. Whatever it was I was trying to control or navigate or help her to be better at, I made sure right after whatever those actions were, we had a discussion. I would say, do you understand what we went through? Do you understand that I do not approve of this? This is why you received what you received. Because if I'm not working to get you around this corner, you're going to have a much harder time later. There is a classic phrase, and people don't know how to use this one either. You spare the rod, spoil the child. It's such an ambiguous phrase because spare the rod means I'm not using something like a pole. You can really just change that up and say, oh, I need to use this rod and to wield some kind of level of understanding and control in my child, because if I don't, they're going to spoil and they're going to be much harder to deal with, or they're going to be much harder to deal with themselves in society. And I didn't do a good job of enforcing things right. So that spare the rod, spoil the child thing. But here's the whole point to that spare the rod, spoil the child. You are trying to save them from themselves of a bigger problem that could come in if you had avoided that altogether, not getting involved, trying to play it safe. So whenever she brought that up about the punishment stuff, I was like, look, I'm going to tell you right now, if I choose to spank my child with that moment or whatever the heck that is, that's on me. I've decided to do that. I know that will rub a lot of people the wrong way, but I'm saying it like that because I have chosen in that moment. I'm not busy thinking, waiting, and just like this is going to happen. No, I chose in that moment. It's either we need to have a talk and something needs to happen or correct it. And if it keeps going, then we got to work on it. And it ain't on every level. It ain't on every level. There's a lot of other tactics you can use beyond spanking or being physical with your kid. That's my opinion. I have witnessed it. I have utilized it. And it works within my child. It may not work within every other kid. I don't know what your kid's bringing to the table. They may have a physical ailment or physical abnormality, brain abnormality, that is putting them in some of these states, and just you got to do certain things to get them out of it. Like they may just have a setup that is just like, I'm going to be notorious mother bad kid. Or let's give an example here. I don't know if I necessarily would do this to my kid, but it would be a strong conversation. We're on the playground, kids are playing, and one of the kids doesn't do what my kid wants them to do. And my kid hauls off and slaps them. We're going to have some reactions. It may not be like, oh, let me slap you back. It's going to be, of course, following up with an apology and all that stuff, probably meant by going home, and constant different punishment levels after that. I can do that now. But if it just kept happening over and over and over. I'm like, you, this rudeness will not be tolerated. I'm going to check it. Do you want to experience what it's like whenever you don't listen to me and I spank or I smack you? Do we need to cross those lines? Respect for others is not necessarily what I'm getting at. I like to acknowledge the ways of others and respect our own first. That's kind of my phrase. But part of that is respecting other people's boundaries or whatever the heck it is and what they wish or don't wish. You know, not being controlling of what it is that we want personally. That makes sense to me. And I'm just speaking from an experience. I'm speaking from what I can use as an example. I really don't have a really very good example. I just know when these moments pop up, I handle them what I feel like is the best course of action. Could be wrong, could be very right, but I think I've done an amazing job. A moment. So I did a little bit of hoppy this morning, so sometimes my nasal cavities are draining. But yeah, you got to trust yourself as a parent. If you look at what your kid has produced. So let me give an example. Kids will do things like hide and not show everything because out of fear that they're going to be reprimanded. But if you could see that they don't have that fear, they're busy expressing themselves, it's great. That means that they are sharing with you what they're feeling. And at the same time, they're very kind. They exhibit some of the behaviors that you wish to have from your kid. I mean, let's be honest. We are trying to guide them in a way that we've been guided and so on and so forth to be these model citizens. And they're the randos. They came in from the great beyond and they're a blank slate. And it's a beautiful thing because they're unprogrammed. And that deprogrammed mind, body, experience, it should be refreshing for anybody that is programmed because it will allow you to step outside of your constant day-to-day, end-to-end experiences of what is expected of you, and you bought into the system. Well, eventually they're in this system, they're going to have to adhere to some of the construct because there wouldn't be such a word as consequences if there weren't any, right? Let's be honest. So she tells me that I'm not going to spank. I don't think I'm going to spank at all in the future. It doesn't even cross my mind. My kid, this is the thing I brought up to my first ex. I said, look at our kid. Is she not amazing? Is she not beating every kid out in all these categories? And we didn't even have to really foster it. She did it on her own. She's got a natural affinity. We nurture those affinities. Every parent, I don't know of any, there might be some times where she's just acted out and she's uncontrollable, but that's with the mom. But there's some things now as a father that's where I come in and kind of just restructure that thing up. And she's getting better even with her mother. There's no other real figure that says anything negative to me. Doctors, church people, if we had her at a church, it's like every background supports and loves my kid. I think she's really amazing. I got no problem. I asked her, like, do you see our child being like less than the best, basically? I mean, we're all biased with our kids, but let's be objective. Like, she's really freaking awesome. And she couldn't disagree. I said, so if it's already working, why are you stressing about it? You're already doing a great job. I tell her that. I tell my ex girlfriend that all the time. I was like, you're doing a great job, whether I approve or disapprove or whatever's going on your side of parenting. The end result of our daughter's behavior is amazing. It is going in a very, very good direction. And so, like, my point is like, I'm not trying to create some kid that's going to be a robot later. Oh, we have to go like this. We have to do it like that. We have to tweak, keep tweaking, keep tweaking, keep tweaking. And she's like, it can always be improved. Perfectionism is always improving. There's always room for growth, but there's always this like, I can be better. I can be better. That is perfectionism. And I told her, I was like, I'm not trying to instill perfectionism in my kid. It's kind of like a double-edged sword. You want them to be able to strive to do their best willingly. But at the same time, you don't want them to stress about getting there. You don't want them to feel like, I didn't do this correct. Oh, I'm a failure. Oh, this could be better. This could be better. And then they're not even really expressing in another sense. So what did you do then? If you're in the parenting role, you have traded, let's use punishment, physical corporal punishment. You've traded that beast for a different beast and got the same result. You can beat your kid in a lot of different ways, not physically. You can beat them by trying to coerce them, trying to make sure that this and that, or working so hard that you're neurotic. And that was the one thing I was like, I gave my example on what I would do in a scenario. It might be spanking. Let's say she kept running out in the middle of the road, never ever paying attention. And I saved her too many times, kept telling her, please, darling, please, darling. I did all the right mechanisms, trying to take away different punishments to get the message through. But she would be hell-bent on continuing to run out in that road, and one day the road takes her out. It kills her. And my point in being with this and stressing my points is that you would take some level of what level you had to take in order to prevent them from the worser outcome. Sometimes that happens. It happens in the military world. I was in the military. Most people don't understand that. They never went through that experience. Sometimes you have to get physical. And she was trying to bring up like, there's other ways, there's all this. I was like, so let me tell you this. I was like, so let's look at the rest of the animal kingdom. Does the rest of the animal kingdom get physical with their children? You don't think there's some like a little shaking or a little physical nudge or something like that from, let's say, the apes, or something from a dog or a cat where they might try to, shake their kid or do something to redirect that offspring so that they're doing the appropriate behavior that they wish for their kids. And I was bringing this up to her. I was like, that's what happens in these scenarios. I was like, so well, we can look right at the animal kingdom and there's some level of physical involvement. And it doesn't take much, but they do something. So it's already built in our nature system. We don't know when we're going to have to do something like that or if. I've seen kids way more docile than my kid and just chill and everything. Nothing's required there. May never ever see anything physical. I mean, you have a hell-bent, rambunctious kid like I've got, and you don't always have to do stuff there, but you got to get the message across sometimes. That's what I was getting at. They have a brain abnormality that makes it very hard or difficult for them to attend to the information that you're trying to stress through. You've got to figure out ways to break through some of those barriers. And I don't know what that is for anyone. I don't know what they go through. I was like, it's too nuanced. I was like, each of us have a profile. But whenever we look at this material on how to be the best parent and read all the books and all this kind of that people just navigate to because they feel like they're horrible parents because they didn't do that one thing they mentioned in the content. I tell people that one size doesn't fit all. And it definitely doesn't fit people's interactions. So while we're all individually different in some aspects, our interactions with one another are also different. It's too nuanced to create one profile and apply it to the whole population. Like we've got it figured out. And I told her, I was like, if we had it so well, if we've figured this out so well, in society, it wouldn't be shitting on itself the way that it is now. She doesn't have a clue. These kids are going to school and there's no power. If it worked, it would work. Kids are going to schools. I know this firsthand from not firsthand, but secondhand from somebody who constantly would go to these schools and he would come back defeated, telling me day after day, well, today they were off, having sex in the back of the classroom. I was like, what? Like things that you would never imagine, or it was unheard of. And then they just tell me, fuck you, and all this other shit. It's constant belittling, picking on one kid, and they say, and you try to get involved, hey, that's not called for, don't do that. And they say, oh, fuck off, you loser, da-da-da. They'd say everything. Total disrespect. Don't care. They bring guns sometimes. They're trying to put in like metal detectors. It's in a state of issues that this nice guy, nice approach way doesn't always work. I mean, it's just a matter of someone understanding that they have this much power and it's chaotic power that they could just exert it on the rest of the population. And here's the thing. There are consequences, right? But they may never ever realize them. They may just continue to say, well, that person checked me, but these people don't. So I got a level and measure of control here. I'm going to exert it. I don't give a motherfucker what everybody think. And then you got gangs that start out as something like that, where it's just like people are advantage taking. I could go all day on that subject. I think I'm already making this a pretty long running video. Oh my God, it's 32 minutes. Every time I see how much I've ranted or talked in a video, I really get a little bit winded. But again, this is my journal entry. So she kept cycling back. She's like, well, I don't understand, why you think it's okay to spank. I'm like, look, I don't think it's okay to spank. She said, oh, okay, so we're on the same page. I'm like, no, we're not. I was like, the spanking issue, you asked me on that, I'm going to agree with you. But when you start to dictate what my decisions are going to be, and I've got to listen to what you've decided to lay down as law, that isn't going to happen. I don't care who the hell you are, or who anybody is. They're not the boss of me. I don't play that role. I don't like it. And I wouldn't try to exert that on the other side. I told her, well, let's give a case in point. Let's say that you were spanking our kid. Let's say my ex was spanking our child. And my kid is telling me about what's happening. And I'm trying to understand. Well, first of all, I want to know if the kid understood what was happening. What did you do? Like, did you upset her this way? Did you do it like that? And the kid just doesn't know. And I'm like, well, first of all, honey, it just ain't okay. It ain't okay, especially that you don't even know what happened, why it happened. I was like, so I'm going to pay attention to this. And if it becomes something where I think it's crossing a line, where it's affecting my child's behavior, her outcomes, whatever that is, when it gets to that point, I've got to step in. I'm going to speak with my ex about that. I'm going to say, hey, I don't know what you got going on, but this one thing right here, it needs to stop. And it's the thing that you've done, I know you should apologize and whatever. It doesn't need to happen again. That's a conversation if something were to transpire like that. And then if it keeps going further and further, then you got a real issue with this other parent. And you might have to take it to another level where you're bringing in the legal system. Or you're trying to get some kind of court order where you can take your kid and keep some control over them. I mean, you got to run that case-by-case scenario. That's when things have gotten out of hand. But to just totally freak out and to start getting into all these different things. Look, I got a psych background. It's so easy for these labels to come out. And somebody that never had a discipline in this study, it's so interesting to me how they think that they're just reading and interpreting and learning just like you and I would. It's not the same as going through some formal education. You can get informed and you can help guide some of your decisions in life that way. But there is a twofold system. Whenever you are learning this information in a program system, and you're having to regurgitate it back, and you're providing details after details to back up whatever your summary is or whatever it is that you're studying, you become more and more ingrained with the material. Versus, I learned something, now I know it, and I'm just going out talking about it. It don't work that way. You begin to start to develop something where you have critical analysis over the material that you're observing and looking at. And sometimes some people have a better way of observing it than others. It just is what it is. So I tried to explain that the best I could. I was like, yeah, it was like on this level, I don't think you have any issues. I don't see me doing it. I don't see her doing it. I was like, but you're not the boss of me. So I'm gonna put that dog down. We're gonna let that dog lie, and then just kind of get into some of my thinking here at the end of this video. I'm sure nobody's going to probably look at this, but it's all good. So I'm very grateful that when I stayed up last night, I watched some of my show, my 90210. I had a great time looking at it till whenever. I was like, oh my God, I'm binge watching an old show. Whew. And had a good time chatting with ChatGPT. And I'm just happy to wake up this morning. I still had a good rest, somewhat of a good rest. I think I can go back and take a nap during the day. I've got a big breakfast on the way. I'm getting ready to eat from DoorDash. I can't wait for that. And I'm looking forward to a cool day. Hopefully my friend gets to that point where they're like, oh yeah, hey, we're here, come on out. Because I probably won't come out otherwise. It's just how I am. I don't get invited. I don't go out. Sometimes I'm looking forward to the night. And whatever that brings is it's like an excitement. It's coming up inside of me. But anyways, that's my day. I'm looking forward to it. And I wish you guys a wonderful day. You listen to this and go out there and do what makes you great as a person. Again, I'm kind of mentally all over the place. Have a good one. Thumbs up if you like it, whatever. See ya.